If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
I turned off news altogether.
I hate to say it, but I don't trust much of anything.
It's the rage bait.
It feels like it's trying to divide people.
If we got clear facts, maybe we can calm down a little.
NBC News brings you clear reporting. Let's meet at the facts. Let's move forward from there. NBC News, reporting for America.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us is our good friend, noted attorney, commentator, essayist, co-host Eric Levine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Gentlemen, we just came off of a mayoral election in New York City, which I respectfully submit is a catastrophe for the city of New York, the state of New York, and indeed our country. As I've said about Mr. Mamdani, he is a clear and present danger, not only to New York City, the state, and the country, but indeed to Western civilization. What he represents is a thrust of radical Islamist policies. He's merely the token, the front face for that movement. He's also the front face for the Democratic Socialists of America, radical left-wing group, also in bed with the Islamists, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-Western civilization. They cloak themselves as socialists, but fundamentally what they are is a dangerous movement to try to subvert our constitutional republic here in America and Western civilization at large. So now, what happened in this election? And I don't mean to put my good friend Jesse Garcia on the spot, but we had a terrible candidate in the city of New York for mayor. Curtis Sliwa. Now, I respectfully submit it's very, very hard for a Republican to be seen as a viable candidate for the mayoralty of the city of New York. You just don't have the demographics here anymore. You don't have the people who are traditionally voting Republican. You have a lot of young kids who don't know the history of saving the city of New York and the dangers that we've confronted, both from Islamist terrorism and economic crisis and crime on the streets. So they elect this guy, Mamdani. And I was pushing very hard during the campaign to get Sliwa out of the race. So I said the only chance we had was with the former governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Not that Cuomo was the best choice in an open field, but he was the best choice we had in a three-way race. And any vote I said for Sliwa was a vote for Mamdani, and that was proved correctly because if you add up the two votes, it was really 50-49, and I believe that all the attacks that Sliwa made against Cuomo cut into Cuomo's numbers, and all the attention, diversion, and having to respond to those attacks, and financially in terms of attention time, campaign time, hurt the former governor. So now we have this problem. We have a Democrat socialist backed by the Working Families Party, which is an ideological movement backed by Islamists. The people around Mamdani are dangerous people. They have an agenda, and it doesn't bode well for our city, our state, and our country. Eric, your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. If anything, you're understating the danger here. If anyone doubted who Zohran Mamdani was or is, all you had to do was watch his victory speech. It was angry, it was churlish, it was petty, it was petulant, and divisive. That's not what victory speeches are supposed to be about.
wasn't about unifying.
It was not about unifying. In fact, he was issuing a warning. Who are the two people that he quoted? He only quoted two people in his speech. The first, at the beginning of his speech, was Eugene V. Debs, where he said that he quoted Eugene V. Debs as saying we're on the verge.
Leading socialist in America in the 20th century.
Exactly. At the turn of the last century, early part of the 20th century, he was a leading socialist and radical union organizer, communist. Now, that's the one quote that Mamdani reiterated, but there are other quotes, including along the lines, this isn't quite high verb because this is from memory, but basically what Eugene V. Debs said was, I'm not a citizen of a country, but I'm a socialist and citizen of the world. And that really who Mamdani sees himself as. Remember, when Mamdani voted, he made it very public that he didn't vote for himself on the Democratic line. He voted for himself on the Workers' Family Party line. That he identified himself at the end of the speech as a young Muslim socialist. That's his identification. Not an American, not a New Yorker, but as a young Muslim socialist. He views himself as a citizen of the world, a socialist, and this was a speech that was given by someone. It could have been given by Lenin in 1917 from a balcony in St. Petersburg. Who's the other person that he quoted? The other person he quoted was Prime Minister Nehru of India, who when India got its independence from the United Kingdom in 1947, he was talking about a brand new day. Again, these brand new days. Apparently there was no American patriot, no George Washington, Lincoln, Reagan, FDR, no one in American history or New York history that Mamdani deemed worthy of quoting. But Nehru, who was an anti-colonialist and anti-Western civilization, that's who Mamdani chooses to quote because that's who his heroes are. So now we have to start looking out for who Mamdani is going to appoint or who's going to have a big role in his administration. I mean, when you have someone like Linda Sarsour, who is Linda Sarsour? Linda Sarsour is a representative of CARE, which
is a front group.
Which is a front group for terrorist organizations. It's a radical Islamic group. Remember who Linda Sarsour is one of the original organizers of the Women's March. But eventually what the Women's March barred Jews from participating.
I guess they're not women.
I guess they're just not women. I guess when you rape women and you attack women and you behead babies and things like that, that doesn't really matter because Jewish women's lives don't matter. But Linda Sarsour had a huge outsized role in Mamdani's campaign. And she has publicly stated already that she's not going to go into the campaign because she views herself as being critically important to be observing him from the outside to make sure that he keeps his promises and keeps his word and keeps his finger on the agenda.
You said into campaign. You meant into the administration.
Into the administration. So from the campaign into the administration. So in any event, so what are these important things that Linda Sarsour is going to be watching out for? She's going to make sure that he remains anti-Semitic, that he hates Zionists, does not recognize a Jewish state of Israel, supports globalizing the Intifada, arresting Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, when he comes to New York, and adopting a generally anti-Western, anti-Jewish, anti-American agenda. These are the people that are going to be driving this city. Now, we have one of the big dangers is we're reading already today that people are taking their kids out of schools in the private schools. They're going to put them in other schools outside of New York City. The real danger here is as these policies get implemented and the people that he hates, job creators, landlords, businessmen, bodega runners, bodega owners, that as these people leave, the people that would vote for someone other than the socialists, that's when the death spiral begins. Because if you don't have the people who oppose him stay so that they can support other candidates or people in the future that will confront him and prevent him from driving the city into a ditch, the only people left are going to be the people who say, give me free stuff. And the people who fund it will be gone. And that's when the city goes into a true death spiral. And then you're going to have, part of his speech was just confrontational with President Trump. I don't care what you think about President Trump. But here's the reality, folks. New York City cannot operate without federal funding. It cannot. And the more you stick your finger in the eye of the president and the more you tell him he's a bad guy, the less money the city's going to get, and the bigger the disaster is going to become. But I'll make this observation, and this is my position. If the president and the federal government is faced with the option of A, funding communism, anti-Semitism, and destroying the financial world, center of the world, or B, bankrupting it so that you can save it for a later date, I choose B. I choose the Gerald Ford approach to New York, drop dead. And that's what I think we're going to see.
Jesse, your thoughts?
I really can't. I think you both have articulated the dangers of Zohran Mamdani as being the mayor-elect. But in terms of the politics of this, I think what I want to do is maybe put this in perspective. Number one, I know that as Americans, we look at Election Day as a day where decisions are made. New York City is one of those outlier communities where, and honestly, this race for mayor came to an end in June of this past year during the Democratic primary. That is when the Democratic Party and Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Adams at that point failed. Well, Mayor Adams wasn't in the primary, but still, his decisions leading up to not being in that primary failed in stopping or taking for granted Mamdani as he was a candidate for office. That is, in the city of New York, primary day and everything. Now, we can speak all we want about Curtis Sliwa and the Republicans in the the chairs of the 5 boroughs sticking with the Republican standard bearer during the city of New York's mayoral race. You know, that's one set because they have their constituencies that they have to address as well. But if you look at something bigger than this, when you have an individual that crosses party, individuals that really put the city and the people ahead of any party type of situation, when you have a congressman like Mike Lawler, who says, despite the failings of 2 bad choices, you know, a communist Democrat socialist or that of a failed, embarrassed governor that had to resign for a number of scandals involving COVID, ethics, and sexual harassment. He put this. He said he endorsed Andrew Cuomo. I keep saying Mario. I apologize. It's been a long week for us. Additionally, you even had the president of the United States, Donald Trump, who is no fan of Andrew Cuomo, coming out and endorsing him late in the game. I'm not sure if those 2 Republicans were going to be helpful or not, but it is what it is. This situation should have been handled long ago. And if you look at the numbers as we look at with 96% of the votes and the election districts counted and reported in the city of New York, Zohran Mamdani had 50.4% of the vote. If you add up everyone else, including Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, and whatever scatterings they had for Mayor Adams, it still would have come up short. So we can talk about spoilers and all that. Let's talk about the truth here. The truth of here is the Democratic establishment, the Democratic voters, the people of the city of New York back in June, whether it be owned by 1 million people or by full 8 million people, voted for this man to be their mayor. They are now going to be suffering the consequences that we're seeing here. And I agree put me in the column of option B. I think that sometimes the house has got to come down and got to be rebuilt again. I do not believe that President Trump should come out and bail out communism and socialist policies. The president stood in front of the American, business organization and said, America will never be communist. And it echoed another sentiment that he had at the State of the Union address in his first term, we will never become a socialist state. And that means, unfortunately, that we have to go through some difficult times so that the people rise up and take back their city. We're going to have to. Because right now, the city of New York, like it or not, they all had an opportunity to vote on Election Day. They did not vote for the lesser of 2 evils, which was Andrew Cuomo. They voted even more so. And basically, what was a 2-man race anyway? I don't know if 7% really even counts as a viable candidate. And he was successful by about a little bit less than 8% of the vote when you put them head to head. But honestly, the Democratic voters, the people who run New York City, who are the special interests of this city, voted for this man in June of this year in their primary to lead their city. And then they took steps and they woke up and wanted everyone else to bail them out. Now, what I will find interesting is what happens on day one. What happens from day one to June 1st of this year, the first 6 months of the 2026. Because we will really see where the power of these Democratic socialists are, and we will really see the failings or the strategy of our governor, who endorsed, Kathy Hochul endorsed Mamdani. We will see if that is what's going to happen. I know that in suburban counties like Suffolk County and Nassau County and others throughout the state, that the days of our regions being used as the ATM fund failed New York City policies, whether it be criminal justice or socialist policies, those days are over. And if federal action needs to be taken in federal courts to block legislation, that's going to be taken, even if it's not going to be successful. The effort's going to be made there. The effort needs to also be made in the state court system. We will not allow. I can tell you, as a Republican chairman from Suffolk County, we will not allow the residents of Suffolk County to be the ATM to take our hard tax dollars to fund failed policies in New York City, just because the voters in New York City decided to, on a whim, vote for something they're never going to receive. You're never going to receive or be able to fund free busing, free health care, free universal child care. You're never going to be able to get free groceries. We've tried that in different countries around the globe, and the result has all been the same: utter failure.
I'm going to agree with you more, Jesse. Eric, final comments for this segment.
Well, Jesse, you make the point that the election was decided in June as to who's going to be the mayor, but I would submit that the decision about the death of the Democratic Party was finally, the last nail was put in the coffin of the current Democratic Party yesterday.
Absolutely.
The fact that Mamdani wins and votes on the Workers' Family Party line as a socialist and not as a Democrat just tells you all you need to know. When Kathy Hochul and Hakeem Jeffries endorsed him and took him into the tent officially, they basically said that it is, and they said we have principled, quote-unquote, principled differences. They basically said it's a principled difference, it's a principled position to take that you don't recognize the Jewish state of Israel's right to exist. It's a principled position to take that you support globalizing Intifada, kill Jews. It's a principled position to take that we should arrest the duly elected prime minister of Israel. It's a principled position to take that communism is a good form of government. It's a principled position to take that we should coercively take away people's hard-earned assets and give them to somebody else. It's a principled position to take that private property should be outlawed. And now that Zohran Mamdani is the face of the Democratic Party and Hakeem Jeffries and Kathy Hochul have endorsed him, he owns both of them because they both now need him if they're going to keep their jobs. But we need a huge shout-out, and the gold medal of coward, morally bankrupt, disgusting, low-life human beings is none other than Chuck Schumer.
Yes.
Where were you, Chuck? Where were you, Chuck? You have sold out the Jews.
Shutting down the government, that's what he was.
Exactly. Well, you've sold out the Jews, you've sold out the Israelis, You've sold out New York. You are an utter
America.
Disgrace. You sold out the entire country.
Wow. With that
But I don't feel strongly.
We'll take a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator, essayist, and attorney Eric Levine, who I'm trying to get him excited, but I just can't. I can't seem to catch him because
Eric's got to come out of his shell.
You noticed that, Jesse. And
I've been working on it.
I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, the anchor of this show, trying to draw Eric Levine out of the show. Out of his shell.
He wants to be off the show.
No, I'm off
in the show, out of the show.
In the show, out of the show. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take some shelf time now for a couple of minutes. Please stay with us. This is Let the Record Show. We'll be back in but a few moments with more important and interesting conversation with Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself. Please stay tuned.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's easy to get stuck reaching for the same familiar fruits and vegetables, even when you know a colorful variety is key. Balance of Nature's fruits and veggie supplements don't replace fruits and vegetables, but it makes it easy to add more variety to what you already eat. With 31 ingredients that are whole fruits and vegetables, switching it up is easy because we've already taken care of the hard part. Go to balanceofnature.com and get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using discount code POD.
Getting ready to step into your career era? Set yourself apart with Adobe Creative Cloud Pro for students. Hone your skills with apps like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and more, powered with the latest in creative AI. Students save over 55% so you can build a portfolio you're proud of. Launch your future with Adobe Creative Cloud Pro for students. Visit adobe.com/students to learn more.
The Lincoln Wishlist sales event is happening now. Here's what's on everyone's wish list. Enjoying holiday jingles with brilliant 3D audio that surrounds you? Check. Watching snow flurries through the panoramic vista roof? Check. Packing up presents with the spacious Lincoln Splitgate? Check. Everything you want. All standard on the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV. Visit your local Lincoln retailer or learn more at Lincoln.com for exceptional offers on 2025 Lincoln vehicles today.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the county chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party and the vice chair of the New York State Republican Party. With us is Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, an interesting thing happened, and Eric is exactly correct. And I pointed this out on election night when I was doing election coverage on WABC, Katz and Cosby. You know, you had a guy who was given the imprimatur of the Democratic Party, yet voted as a Democratic Socialist, thereby acknowledging that the Democratic Socialists are really controlling the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party, my party, as I've known it and was raised in it, is on a death throw. And that's a real problem. And that leads to some very interesting questions. How does this man govern? Well, he's already indicated that the people he's surrounding his transition team are hardcore lefties and Islamists. That's an anti-capitalist. This is very serious stuff. The first major issue that Jesse has pointed out over the years we're doing the show, and Eric has pointed out over the years we're doing the show, and I've pointed out.
Everybody's pointed this out.
And
we'll soon learn what it is.
And I'll tell you exactly what it is. The first obligation of government is protecting the populace.
100%.
It's public safety. It's law and order. Without public safety, law and order, and protecting your population, you have no moral legitimacy to govern. It's as simple and as complicated as that. That leads to this issue. Jessica Tisch, a great NYPD police commissioner, a great public servant, a remarkable, brilliant woman who Zohran Mamdani uses a political toy during the campaign saying, well, I'm going to ask her to stay on. And he did that because he was trying to appease people who were concerned about him and placate them. He also did it because he thought it was a way of mitigating against the concerns of the Jewish community, because Jessica is Jewish. comes from a very prominent Jewish family in New York City. So that's what he did. That was the gambit. Now, Jessica is now going to be confronted with the following problem. If, in fact, Mamdani offers a job to her as police commissioner, what does she do? Is she better off personally walking away from it? Is the city better off having her in place? What are the consequences of that decision? Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'll give the conclusion what I think she should do, and then I'll work backwards and say why. I think she has to resign. I don't see how she can possibly stay. If she stays, she works for the mayor. She has to carry out his policies, and his policies are going to be to tie her hands. So as he ties her hands and crime gets out of control, he'll be able to point to her as the one who failed. She shouldn't be taking that. She shouldn't take that responsibility. He supports raise the age. She's against it. He supports bail reform. In fact, taking it even further. She is opposed to it. She supports broken windows. The mayor's, Mamdani's against it. So everything that she wants to achieve with the NYPD, he's against. She believes that the NYPD should fight crime, and he believes that there's no such thing as crime. Crime is merely a construct, social construct, as he describes it. So I think that she would be doing the city a disservice by staying, because all she would be doing is giving Mamdani cover. I think she needs to make him be responsible for the spike in crime that we're going to witness. And as the NYPD flees, and as he starts bringing in more and more social workers and deputizing them as police, so he could say, we have the same number of members of the NYPD. They just don't carry guns. They just go around and try and talk people off of ledges and to drop their guns and to drop their knives and to stop, committing crimes. So I think that Jessica Tisch, for her own legacy, I think for political reasons, and I think for the good of the city, that she should refuse to stay on and seek other employment.
Jesse, your thoughts?
The decision by the commissioner on whether to serve or not to serve should be solely hers. And there are arguments on both sides. Eric outlined one set of arguments. I think what you have seen, though, is that this is an individual, Commissioner Tisch is someone who has been well regarded. Everywhere she has served in city government, that department has excelled. And that is a great track record. I also believe and see Commissioner Tisch as being the one person that has the credibility, because she is being asked purportedly to stay on by not only the New York City PBA, its uniformed officers and its general, but even those Democrat political opponents that maybe do not agree with her. She is the one that has the credibility that once it has gone too far, if she is given the independence to run the police department, to root out corruption, and then continue to make it more effective and carry out the mission of keeping the people of the city of New York safe, then she should be, if she decides to be able to do that. If at the first inkling of the true democratic socialist policies coming out, especially when it comes out to criminal justice, she's the one that can stand up with all the credibility that will be a bullhorn. That is a one alarm that will certainly begin the transformation of maybe the city and the people rise up. If she leaves outwardly, it's like when we spoke in the first segment. If all the people that leave that are being affected, the financial community, the small business owners, the landlords leave New York, then as Eric said, the only people left are the ones that want all the free stuff. And there's no revolution that can come forward, no uprising to change back their city. So I believe that credibility, she has this purpose and duty to make that decision for herself and for the best of the people of the city of New York. And I've always said, one thing I've made sure I have not said, because I believe it this way, is that it's not in the service of the mayor. It is in the service of the people of the city of New York and police officers under her leadership and her command. Once, and we know it's going to happen, that is now Mamdani's actions or policies are confront her principles on that has made her well regarded and successful and has provided her this credibility, then that's the time when she needs to say, no, this is not going forward. And that will carry more weight than a partisan shot here and there from 4 or 5 city council members, Republican elected officials, leaders, whatnot.
Well, I think you and Eric have really set up the dilemma, the quandary that Commissioner Tisch has, and people of goodwill who are trying to give her advice about what to do, they're faced with. Let me make a few points. Number one, the city of New York is facing approximately a $17 billion deficit. And as both of you have pointed out, that money is not going to be coming quickly and easily from the Trump administration. He'll give whatever minimum necessary to fulfill his legal obligations, but there's not going to be a lot of fat in the delivery of federal money. And you have to understand that. Now, why do I raise that issue? Because having been the general counsel of New York City Council and the chief counsel of the speaker, and having been involved in 14 city budgets, I would point out to you, when you need to save money, one of the first things that you play with is the police class. You don't fill the police class. You hold back. That's an immediate cost savings in terms of the operating budget. And you already have a deficit. The number is about 5,000 a deficit already. And you have people retiring because they don't want to be part of a force that's not respected or honored or appreciated. So you have people leaving, you're having early retirements, people from all over the country are offering NYPD officers, the men and women of our blue, the best and wonderful people who protect us, offering them better gigs elsewhere, whether you're talking about New Hampshire, whether you're talking about Texas, whether you're talking about Florida, all over, they're putting up billboards saying, come on down, come on over, we'll take care of you, we'll appreciate you. So if you cut a class and you have people retiring and you're not funding it properly, that's a problem. Then to Eric's point, when you have social workers coming in instead of doing police work, you're endangering everybody. There is no public safety. Next, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, he wants to change the law and give the final...
This is huge. This is
huge. The final determination of discipline to the Civilian Complaint Review Board, which the way it's created packs it with...
cop haters.
Cop haters, people who are controlled by the mayor, the public advocate, and then you have some city council members who are radical anti-cop as well. So you're going to give that discipline. That's a very big problem. Next, he wants to eliminate the critical response team. That's the one who takes care of the riots, the demonstrations, the shooting on Park Avenue in front of one of the major office buildings. Who stopped that? Who went to deal with that? That was the critical response team. Dealing with terrorism, you need to have an administration that's trusted, that the feds will work with to protect the city against terrorist acts. And I respectfully submit there's no way in hell that Zohran Mamdani, he's ever going to get a security clearance.
Right, I was just going to say, how do you share intelligence about radical Islam with him?
Of course not. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you have that. Okay, so think about what I've said so far. CCRB, police class, critical response team, social workers, terrorism. Now, let's not forget from the world I came from before I started as general counsel to the Red Apple Group with John Catsimatidis. I came from the bench, the state Supreme Court bench. The mayor appoints the judges. So the lower judges, the initial appointments, the civil court, criminal court, family court, those folks are appointed by the mayor in New York City. And he's going to pack the appointing committee with his fellow travelers, the big left-wingers, the Islamists, the anti-cop people. And so the people who can be appointed to the bench are not going to be people of my background and approach. They're going to be letting everybody out of jail free. So even under the ridiculous law that the state Democrats pushed through the legislature that opened up the doors and didn't deter crime and didn't hold people in who should have been held in, even when they have discretion to hold somebody in those limited number of cases, guess what? They won't. Because it's up to the judge, the individual judge, and nobody can say no. There's nobody can object. The DA can say, I want him held in on bail. Judge says, that's fine. That's not my opinion. I'm letting him out. So you're going to have judges letting people out. Then making it even worse, Jesse and Eric, is that people who were appointed initially to the lower courts, the criminal court, for example, like I was, and then went on to the Supreme Court. When you put somebody in the Supreme Court, you're giving them real power. The Supreme Court of the State of New York is the highest trial court in the state, and those people who sit on that bench, the women and men of that group, have real power in their jurisdiction. So this is serious stuff, and all of that has to weigh on Commissioner Tisch. She has to factor all of that in. This is not an easy decision for her. If I thought that Jesse Tisch could be a strong countervailing force against Mamdani and hold him accountable and keep him in check, I would say to her, Commissioner, I'm begging you, take that spot. Please do it for the good of the city and good of the people of the city. But
Your Honor, I believe she can, if I could just jump in. I'm not saying for the full 4-year term, but for a period of time, I believe she can be, and it will be, that countervailing force that you just spoke about. It's just a matter of how long that will last.
Yeah,
humble opinion.
Yeah, we just fundamentally disagree. She works for him. She works at the pleasure of the mayor, and it's her job to fulfill his mandate. That's her job, and she's not going. And she can't both fulfill that mandate and fulfill her moral obligation to the city. It's an intractable conflict. I think she has to move on.
Well, we're going to have to take a break in a moment. I just want to make this point: the measure, whoever the police commissioner is, and where we're going to be with public safety and law and order and the preservation of civilization in our town, is going to be the first time you have these rabid demonstrations from Antifa, Black Lives Matter,
absolutely,
the Palestinian liberation people who think it's just wonderful to intimidate, harass, and kill their political and cultural opponents.
He's gonna go to those. He's gonna cheer them on.
Of course.
We have police protection there.
Oh well, he's fine. You don't have to worry about him. But the fact of the matter is, when they take over Penn Station, they take over the Port Authority, they take over Grand Central, they block the Brooklyn Bridge. When they take over the campus of Columbia and NYU, what is he going to do?
Well, he's already on record of supporting the Kafia Nazis at Columbia and NYU.
There you
go. He's already on record of supporting those. And when the police cracked down on it, he was accusing them of being pigs Nazis and shutting down their First Amendment rights. These people clearly had a First Amendment right to beat up Jews. How dare you stop them?
Well, on that high note, this is Let the Record.
But we sat here and we had these demonstrations on Columbia's and our college campuses. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we were critical of the current administration for being too slow with deploying the police there, too.
100%.
Well, this is the problem. If it's private property like Columbia University is, they have to invite the cops on, and then the commissioner has to send them over there. That's the issue. So you had a slow response from Columbia in terms of their property.
Well, that's because Chuck Schumer was sending them emails saying, just keep your head low. Fighting anti-Semitism is only a Republican issue. That is almost a Hike Verba quote from his email.
Yeah, that's true, too. Okay, so this is Let the Record Show with Chairman Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Stay tuned for our final segment for more interesting and important conversation.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. New players, new games, new rules. Squid Game, The Challenge returns for a gripping second season. 456 contestants from all walks of life, competing in the ultimate test of strategy, alliances, and endurance. For a life-changing prize of $4.56 million. With stakes this high, why make friends when you can make millions? Watch Squid Game, The Challenge Season 2, now playing only on Netflix.
This is a real good story about Bronx and his dad, Ryan, real United Airlines customers.
We were returning home, and one of the flight attendants asked Bronx if he wanted to see the flight deck and meet Captain Andrew.
I got to sit in the driver's seat.
I grew up in an aviation family, and seeing Bronx kind of reminded me of myself when I was that age.
That's Andrew, a real United pilot.
These small interactions can shape a kid's future.
It felt like I was the captain.
Allowing my son to see the flight deck will stick with us forever.
That's how good leads the way.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse's the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us is our co-host, esteemed attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, gentlemen, I want to raise this issue with you that I find deeply troubling. You know, we talk about the left-wing anti-Semitism, the Jew hatred that's rampant across the left wing of and the socialists and the Islamists of this country and their fellow travelers and their supporters. But there's also a big failure on the part of Republicans to confront and repudiate anti-Semitism. And I'll name some of the people I think responsible for this. You have Tucker Carlson, you have the Heritage Foundation, you have Candace Owen, and by his failure to confront and challenge this, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. This is very troubling indeed, because that means as anti-Semitism is being normalized and it's being pushed by both the left wing and by the right wing. And that's troubling indeed, because first, you know, as that famous Protestant theologian said in the 1930s about the Nazis going after the Jewish community, fundamentally he's saying, you know, first they came for the Jews, then they came for the trade unionists, then they came for the socialists, and then they came for me, and I wasn't a socialist or trade unionist or a Jew, but then they came for me and there was nobody left to speak up for me. And that's, of course, the problem. Every time you have a breakdown of civil society, it always starts with scapegoating the Jewish community. And Jewish community, I'm proud to say, whatever country they've ever been in, have been contributors to the public good, whether it's hospitals, whether it's medical research, whether it's charitable organizations, whether it's cultural organizations, whether it's job creation, whether it's making life better for everyone. Jews believe as part of their culture, whether they're religious Jews or secular Jews, doesn't matter. The goal is to make the world a better place for everyone. That's what we believe as a group. Whether you do it from a religious perspective or a cultural perspective or a secular perspective, that's part of our ethos. And so when you come after the Jews, ultimately, that's the first place you go if you want to unravel society. And that's what I'm afraid of. And I'm very upset with the Republican Party. I'm angry, bitterly angry at the Democratic Party, the party I'm still a registered member of, even though it's being taken over by the Democratic Socialists. But the Republican Party, where I literally have some of my best friends Republicans, and I care about it, and I support the Republican Party because they're the last best hope now of protecting us against the Islamist surge and the socialist communist surge. So, with that high note, I turn it over to Eric first.
So I would frame it slightly differently. I wouldn't say that Democrats versus Republicans on this issue. I would describe it as you have anti-Semitism on the left and you have the anti-Semitism on the right, and how is it being dealt with? On the left, it's being embraced. It is being mainstreamed. The Democratic Socialists of America are anti-Semites. They're anti-Israel, and they have taken over the Democratic Party. They rule the day. So you have to be anti-Semitic if you want to get ahead in the Democratic Party.
They won't even take into the Democratic Socialist Party.
Right. So that's on the left. Now, there is clearly anti-Semitism on the right, and it must be called out, and it must be dealt with, and it can't be excused, and it can't be ignored. Now, the difference is it is being called out on the right. Now, I'm on the board of an organization called the Republican Jewish Coalition, and we had a gala last weekend out in Las Vegas. It's an annual event, and speaker after speaker showed up. Republican elected officials, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, he zoomed in, Senator Dave McCormick, Senator Cruz, Senator Lindsey Graham, Congressman Mike Lawler, Governor Huckabee Sanders, to a person, and this is just a small number of people that were actually there, to a person, they all called out the anti-Semitism on the right. They all took issue with the Heritage and Tucker Carlson debacle. We can go and we'll discuss in a second what that was about. So the primary difference is while the Jew haters run the Democratic Party, there are responsible leaders in the Republican Party that are calling out and stamping on it. They are not taking the Chuck Schumer approach of cowardice, of remaining silent, of thinking we can control them, and then eventually being taken over, being eaten by our own. So I think there's that fundamental difference. Now, what is the issue that has come up? Tucker Carlson it himself peddles in a lot of anti-Semitic tropes. The undue influence that Jews have, their dual loyalty, putting Israel ahead of America, some sort of international global conspiracy, protocols of elders of Zion garbage. And he brings on in addition to that, he brings on his show a fellow by the name of Nick Fuentes. Who's Nick Fuentes? Nick Fuentes is a well-known Nazi. So let's be candid. He's a Nazi. He thinks Hitler is a good guy. He thinks Churchill started World War II. He denies the Holocaust occurred. And Tucker brings him on the show.
And legitimizes him.
And he's like a bobblehead. I mean, I think at Nick Fuentes' next Nazi rally, you can have Tucker Carlson bobblehead day. Get a bigger crowd. So people were going crazy with legitimately so about this. And also keep in mind, Tucker Carlson, just to digress for 1 second, as the lead up to the attack of the American-Israeli attack on the Iran nuclear facilities was coming, Tucker Carlson publicly went on the record and said that President Trump should not listen to neocons, which is code for Jew, and that anybody who supports an attack on Iran is an enemy, quote-unquote, an enemy of the United States, not a friend. So this is the kind of crap that Tucker Carlson peddles in. But now he brings Fuentes on and just sits there as a bobblehead, and for reasons that are known only to God, and he may not even know the answer to this, Kevin Roberts, the head of the Heritage Foundation, found it critical for him to make a public statement to defend Tucker Carlson from these exact same elected Republican officials I'm identifying here, to defend Tucker Carlson and say Tucker Carlson will always be welcome here and he's a good buddy of ours. And then he kind of gave some sop to we disagree with Nick Fuentes. But what he did by defending Tucker Carlson is basically what he said. We defend Tucker Carlson for not taking Nick Fuentes to task. It was okay that he just sat there as a bobblehead. So in essence, he mainstreamed Nick Fuentes. He made him a legitimate speaker. Now, Nick Fuentes is a gross, disgusting, horrible human being with gross, disgusting, horrible ideas. But this is America, and you are free to say the dumbest, stupidest, moronic things known to man. But it doesn't mean anyone is obligated to give you a platform. But it does mean if you do give them a platform, you have an obligation to push back. And Tucker Carlson didn't push back. Why? Because he generally probably agrees with him in most part. But then why does Kevin Roberts feel the need to come out and defend Tucker Carlson? And that is what the brouhaha is. But Richard, you should know that to a person at the RJC and even beyond the RJC, any Republican leader, senator, House member, they come out and they have condemned both Tucker Carlson and Heritage for Kevin Roberts' statement. Now, there's a lot of brouhaha within Heritage. We can't just think that Heritage is a monolith of Kevin Roberts. So there's been a lot of uprising in Kevin Roberts. But I think this is a great distinction. When the Kafia Nazis were setting up tents and tormenting Jews and rioting at Columbia University, Chuck Schumer went into the Witness Protection Program because he was afraid that people like Zohran Mamdani and AOC and Bernie Sanders and the radical progressive left and the other democratic socialists would be angry at him. So he remained silent, and in fact told Columbia to just remain silent. We referenced this earlier in the show. He just said, fighting anti-Semitism is a Republican issue. But Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, my congressman, who I love and adore, Mike Lawler, and Virginia Fox from North Carolina, 2 Baptists and a Catholic, went to Columbia and said this crap has to stop. Yep. That's the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Yes, anti-Semitism exists on the right, and it's got to be squashed like a bug, but it is being rejected by the overwhelming majority of Republicans. Whereas on the left, it is being embraced, and it is becoming a litmus test. You must be anti-Israel if you have any chance of advancing in the Democratic Party.
Let me just say this before I turn it over to Jesse. I think your points are well taken, and I agree with you. My concern is the normalization in American society of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and it's this pincer movement from the left and the right. And where do the Jews turn? I agree with that. I share that concern, and that's why it's so critically important that everybody speak out against it.
And that's what I think happened.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I just want to say this. There's a very famous book. It's called A Gentleman's Agreement, and then they made a movie with Gregory Peck. And it has to do with what I would call polite anti-Semitism, and I say that with quotation marks around the word polite. We won't give you a job, but we'll politely decline your ability to get the job. Or you can't join our country club, but we'll politely say, well, we have a restricted policy, it's okay. And you can't live in our neighborhood because you're Jewish, but, good luck in living in your own community. And it's polite, And I don't want my daughter to marry your son or my son to marry your daughter. But it's all, everybody's being very polite. It's social club anti-Semitism. Those days, and the expose of that in Laura Z. Hobson's book, A Gentleman's Agreement, and in the movie with Gregory Peck, where he's a Gentile writer who poses as a Jew to fully understand what it's like to be the victim of anti-Semitism. And to those folks who have not read the book or seen the movie, I commend it to you, because anti-Semitism is alive, well, and growing, and you need to understand that if you have a bit of humanity and compassion for your fellow human beings. I turn it over to you, Jesse.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. And I think what happens is that the Tucker Carlson interview and giving him that, Nick Fuentes, that platform, it leads to the normalization of this. And I agree with Speaker Johnson, and I agree with all Republicans, and it's true. While the left embraces anti-Semitism, it's the Republicans that are fighting it. And it doesn't matter, even in a small voice or in a singular voice, one voice amongst many, if it's anti-Semitism, it has to be stomped out because there's no place for that. But we have to understand and strongly state what Johnson said. You're right. Nick Fuentes, he has his right to be a moron, be stupid, be wrong on all these issues. It's his right in the First Amendment. What happens is when we allow it to be amplified, and that's what Tucker Carlson did. If he was going to go after Nick Fuentes and expose him for the anti-Semite that he is and how wrong his policies are, that would have been one where you shine a light on it. But that's not what he did. He gave him a platform and basically nodded and allowed him to spew his hate. That was wrong. The Heritage Foundation, I have no idea what the hell was going on there. I do know one thing in the business of politics, marketing, and public relations. If you got to come out and clarify a statement, you never should have made the statement in the first place.
Amen to that, Jesse.
What you did was basically just double down on stupidity. And That is going to hurt. And it already is hurting the Heritage Foundation for Roberts' stupidity. It's just, I appreciate the fact that across the board, and I think you, at the conference that you were mentioning, Eric, in Las Vegas, I think there were signs or even signs being flown over that Tucker is not MAGA.
Yeah, Congressman Randy Fine from Florida was putting those out. And I should say, I need to add this. It's very important. I'm on the board of the RJC, but the views that I am speaking on this show are strictly and only mine. People may agree with me, they may disagree with me, but I am not speaking for the RJC. I'm only speaking for myself.
Exactly. But again, in speaking for yourself, You speak for all of us. Me, you speak for Judge Weinberg. All common sense, real Americans that say anti-Semitism has to be repudiated in any and all forms and in any and all platforms. It has to be, because if it's not rejected, it will become normalized, and we cannot live in a society that normalizes this type of any type of anti-Semitism.
Well, let's switch gears. We have a few minutes left on a very important topic, Jesse and Eric, and that's the government shutdown. I call it the Schumer shutdown.
The Schumer shutdown.
It is a Schumer shutdown. Well,
it is a Schumer shutdown.
But if you look at the election results from yesterday, the American people didn't view it that way.
Well, you have to get
That's a little bit different. That's a whole different topic that we can go into, especially the election that leads at following a national election. We could have a different discussion on that.
Okay.
A more poignant one on that.
I think you're both, being the judge here, I'll say you're both right. The answer.
We can't both be right.
Yes, you're both right. Look, this is. I've ruled. You have to appeal. Take it to a higher court.
Okay.
Look, this is.
Do we take it to Mr. Katzmatidis?
The higher court is Katz, right? All right. That court will be in session on Katz and Cosby, where I sit as a co-host every night between 5 and 6. How's that for a free plug? Okay. So Elias has just shown me we have 3 minutes to go. I want to raise this Schumer shutdown. Look, they've had 14 votes. The Democrats have voted down every time to open up the government, and yet they go around saying it's a Republicans' fault. Everybody knows that all the votes for a continuing resolution to keep the government open while you had a Biden administration, they were all supported by the Democrats, and the Republicans went along with it. It was all about funding the government and keeping people employed and doing their jobs and protecting us and making sure that the trains were running on time as best as they could in this country. That's what it was all about. But what the Democrats did is they decided that they were going to start protecting illegal aliens in terms of health care, and they were going to use this to foster a $1.5 trillion more expense, where you have way over $30 trillion worth of a deficit. And they said, no, you want to negotiate a budget? We'll negotiate a budget. It's 7 weeks to go. Let's just pass a continuing resolution, keep everybody funded, everything going, and then we'll sit down and have a real conversation about the budget. The Democrats decided not to because they decided this was a good election issue and it was good posturing for them. And so the result was that we still don't have the government fully funded. The continuing resolution hasn't been there. The reason I'm concerned about this, and I think it's so important, Jesse and Eric, is you now have calls by the President of the United States to say, well, we've got to end this shutdown, and if the Democrats won't give us a vote, we have to end the filibuster. Now, I respectfully submit, and I saw Laura Ingraham on Fox last night saying, oh, well, you got to do it because the Democrats, when they get in power, they're going to eliminate the filibuster. Okay? All due respect to Laura Ingraham, she's right a lot of times, she's wrong a lot of times. She's dead wrong on this. I submit that if you want an intelligent discussion of this, you read the Wall Street Journal editorials on this. If you open up the door to the ending of the filibuster with 50 votes plus a vice president, you're allowing radical Democrats to push through everything they want in terms of their agenda, whether it's making Puerto Rico a state, District of Columbia a state, packing the Supreme Court, having national federal policy on energy mandated that every state has to follow. Whatever they would want to come up with, whatever gambit they would want, that can push through with 50 votes or 51 votes. If it's a tie, 50-50, you have the vice president in your pocket, you push it through. The founding fathers understood majority tyranny is a danger, and the way to protect it is the rules in the United States Senate that recognize the filibuster, and I submit to you, Mr. President, Laura Ingraham, you're dead wrong. Protect the filibuster, because if the Democrats come back to power, they will use the abolition of the filibuster to destroy our country. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We want to thank you for listening. We look forward to having you with us again next week. And as always, God bless you, God bless your families, and of course, God bless our wonderful country, America. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show with Judge Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia, and Eric Levine. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.